Housing is there, but to feed the people and provide the facility, to provide the services that are necessary to take care of those people.
Oh yeah, that jail feeds that. What they call a pork barrel.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very true.
And at the same time, it takes people off the street that they don't want on the street, but it doesn't minimize the problem whatsoever. It exacerbates the problem, exaggerates the problem. It won't go away. But this is their point. It's a pretty devastating point of view, and I'm quite sure that many people won't accept that concept whatsoever. They won't believe that that is the case. But to me, again, it's a new form of concentration camp that is being developed in the United States. In order, rather than deal with a problem in a realistic, sensible, humanistic, socially acceptable way, this is what they are doing. So
sure.
And again,
it's just another way of shoving the problem under the carpet, so to speak.
Well, they're trying to, but the carpet is getting so lumpy, it's obviously not a carpet anymore.
You know trouble can start when the clock hits 3. When there's no place after school for kids to be. Nothing to do but hanging on city streets. When mom and dad are working to make ends meet. Now it's time to beat the street.
With after-school programs, city kids aren't left alone and vulnerable. They keep on learning between 3 and 6, but these programs need your support. Join with the Urban League to keep them going. Call now, because it's
time to beat the street.
My name is Jesse Cordy, and what I'm going to tell you is real. On January 4th, 1987, a passenger train en route between Washington and New York collided with a freight train. In the trial that followed, the engineer admitted to having smoked marijuana and overlooking security measures. They say that marijuana doesn't hurt anyone. But this time, 16 people died. Among them, Laura Cordy, my wife.
Look, if my mother doesn't care about my homework, why should I care?
Show me a parent who really cares, and I'll show you a kid who can learn.
Karen, hitting is wrong. You're bigger, you're stronger, you take time out, and you don't hit. Do you understand?
Take time out. Don't take it out on your child.
Well, they're trying to make it a pit, that's, I remember, it hasn't reached that proportions, and let's hope it never does. Let's hope people respond in such a way to prevent that from happening, but it reminds me of the pits that the Nazis used to build to shove their victims in.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So it's a harsh kind of picture, but I think it's unfortunately a realistic picture. And things have to be done in this country to deal with these social welfare concerns, the everyday concerns that people have in a more humanistic, sensible, rational way.
Yeah.
They appear. And that's one of the reasons they dislike Mumia. Mumia talks about these things, talks about being able to deal with these issues in a realistic way. And when Mumia was became affiliated with or related to the MOVE organization, one of the things the MOVE people wanted was their self-respect. They wanted to be treated with, in their new religious outlook, with a consideration and respect.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of religious groups in this country, when the powers that be don't like a particular religious group, they harass them. Look what they did in Waco. I mean, they killed men, women, and children with impunity.
So really nothing's really acceptable except you're straight Catholic, Protestant, Anglo-Saxon. That's the only thing that's really going to go completely unquestioned in this country.
Well, not even that's generally. I think they make so many deals with or appear to make deals with the fundamentalists in this country, and the fundamentalists who have a very distorted, in my view, distorted version of American history, have a distorted version of even religious history, and the way people should live. I mean, for instance, they think that all the founding fathers were devout Christians.
Right.
That was not the case.
No.
I mean, as a matter of fact, some of them were deists. And
Right.
a deist is a person who believes that God created the world, but from that point on, you need a rational approach to developing your society. And as a matter of fact, many of our founding fathers were influenced by the Enlightenment of the French, preceding the French Revolution, and many of the things that surrounded the French Revolution.
Right.
So that's not accurate. Religiously, they take things that even distort what Jesus Christ had to say and what his disciples had to say in terms of saying that this is what people should believe and is the gospel truth.
Well, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Okay, say like even in the case of the founding fathers, also a lot of them, probably most of them, were unacceptable. Like you know what I'm saying? It's like when not Hitler, but when Castro back in the early '80s, he put a lot of his refugees, a lot of his prisoners, whatever, put them on a boat. The same way with the Europeans back then. But they're here now. That's how they were when they were still away. They come to this country, now they're the founding fathers. You understand what I'm saying? Right. And that's how it was, and that's where a lot of the mean-spiritedness came. We didn't get the best, we didn't get the cream of the crop when it came to the Europeans. You know what I'm saying? When they came to this country, we got basically a lot of the rejects, a lot of the insurrectors, a lot of the rebels, so to speak. That's what the United States basically ended up with. Isn't that true?
Well, American history is a strange mixture. It's schizophrenic. You have to. While somebody like Thomas Jefferson wrote a Declaration of Independence, which was one of the most, in many respects, most advanced political document of its day, and even today, as a matter of fact, I had mentioned to you at one time earlier that during the 50s, the McCarthy period, somebody got up in the streets of New Orleans and read the Declaration of Independence and was arrested, not for obstructing traffic and not for doing anything of a detrimental nature. He was arrested because he was reading this revolutionary rabble document about all men being created equal. Okay, but even Thomas Jefferson, who exemplifies that, was a slaveholder. He was a slaveholder till the day he died. He never freed his. Even when he died, exceedingly few of his slaves were freed. Unlike George Washington, who freed his slaves when he died. Right. So you have a system here that, on the one hand, we talk about a great liberating movement, which the American Revolution in many respects was. At the same time, and blacks participated in American. Many people don't know that the first person to be killed at Boston in the Boston Massacre was a black by the name of Crispus Attucks. Right. So, which also symbolized this kind of participation on the part of blacks in the American and all the wars of the United States, as a matter of fact. So you have, on the one hand, this great liberating document for the Americans, and those Americans didn't include everything, because to be a man in those days excluded women, but even to be a man in those days meant that you had to be a property holder. Right. It was not you and I, or even just I as a white person. Right. Okay, you had to be a white a landholder. Yes. $250 worth of, and this we're talking about 1760s. So it wasn't. It had its limitations even in that respect. But anyway, it was based upon slavery on the one hand, and development of a economic freedom, capitalist economic freedom on the other hand. But on top of that, people are becoming more and more aware that in order to even do that, the Indians were subjugated, or wiped out, or destroyed, or pushed out of the picture. So we have a history unfortunately, of two things, of several trends of people being fighting for liberation, freedom, an American revolution, and on the other hand, Native Americans being pushed back, wiped out, destroyed in one way or another, and black enslavement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, and I won't even, don't even have to mention the working people. The working people had a tough time making a living.
Now, wouldn't it make sense, however, say, for example, if, like you talked about how we have all these prisons today, okay? Would it make sense if we could turn some of those prisons into colleges or schools, community colleges, state colleges? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you have all the resources and everything. Of course, that's a very radical idea. But I'm just saying from the standpoint of just as a matter of fact, okay, because, education being as important as it is.
Well, you touch a very important point, because we were talking about my great-granddaughter, which I do have,
right.
Going to school, and that if she wanted to go to a school that had the proper discipline, I'm not even talking about I'm a firm believer in public education. But unfortunately, in some situations, in some communities, the control of the students is not as what it should be. This is part of the problem. I don't blame it on the kids, and I don't blame it on the parents. I blame it on the administration.
Right.
I was a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have an administrator or administrators that do their job properly, you don't have those kinds of situations.
Right.
But you have many administrators who don't do their job properly. They're in there for different reasons, which I don't want to pursue right now.
Right.
But it's very difficult for young people to go to school. And even if they, so it costs a lot of money if you want to get into an educational system that's going to be free from violence, where you're going to have sufficient facilities and books, paper, materials, and in today's world, computers. You can't live without computers anymore, and all the technological advances that have been made. That's the nature of the world, and many schools are not provided with those equipments, with those kinds of equipment. So it costs a lot of money, even for a kindergarten kid or a first grade kid. Now, I was just also talking with my wife about going to college. It's becoming outrageous. When you're talking about a college being from anywhere between $7,000 and $20,000 a year,
right.
What do they expect young people to do? I mean, right. It's outrageous.
But you know how much it costs you to house an inmate a year? Between $25,000 and $30,000. Okay, that college education is almost nothing in comparison to just feeding someone who's just who's just sitting around in jail cell rotting.
Well, it would to me make a lot more sense to try and get these people to be educated as much as possible. Yet they have recently passed legislation in New York State to curtail the educational opportunities of inmates.
Exactly.
Making it even more difficult for them to get an education and be a useful, constructive citizen. Amazingly enough, Mumia Abu-Jamal, while he's in death row, got his, even though he's an exceedingly versatile and I think lyrical and beautiful writer, he got his degree in black psychology last year while in prison. So, but these opportunities in New York State are being, and elsewhere, are being curtailed because they don't want to spend the money.